Axons Unleashed.
G'day team, Robbie Turner's my name. Well, you probably all should fucking know that by now. Welcome to another episode of Axons Unleashed. I've got another awesome Army veteran in here with me, and we are going to go narrow and deep on a bunch of stuff. I was happily watching a bit of Bathurst 1000 on the weekend, so that was, this is being recorded in late October 2024. So wherever you were, you're in the Bathurst time frame, I'm here next week, and the week following in the office, and we've got the amazing, the only Mr. Dan Vincent in the office. Welcome to Axons Unleashed, buddy.
Thanks.
That was a very quiet reply. We've just been sitting here talking off camera, haven't we, Daniel? And it's so I've got Daniel and Dan, so... you've got an awesome bloody story to tell, mate. So, as always, take us back to the start. And I know what you're doing now, which will be the final part of the podcast. So hang around for that, ladies and gents, is just really impactful in the whole veteran space. So, you're here for a reason, mate. You've got an amazing story to tell. But take us back to the start. Where'd you grow up? Why'd you want to join the military? And how was your basic training?
Where did I grow up? I grew up in a little town called Nowra. You will know Nowra.
I do know Nowra.
Parachute training school.
Indeed,
so,
yes.
Yeah. I grew up there. My dad was Navy, so Navy brat, lived in Nowra. He was aviation, worked in the helicopters. So we only moved once. We were kind of lucky as kids, not having to move around a lot. So it was either we went to Canberra for a couple of years and then came back to Nowra. So left my friends, came back, reconnected with my friends. So
did it feel like you were always going to join the military? Dad sort of, being
it's a long line.
Naval aviator.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you're a pilot? That's the Top Gun line. Yeah.
Oh no, well he wasn't even a pilot.
Oh, there you go. Shout out to you, Dad.
He's going to listen to this. No, he was air crew, so he was the loadie on the side. So
cool. Still very important, mate.
Yeah.
It's no good flying a plane with no one in the back that can actually implement the capabilities of the aircraft.
Yes. So, but was I always going to join the military? Well, it's a long line of family for me. So I always wanted to join the military. I think I've said it on heaps of people I speak to. It was always in my blood. I originally was joining the Navy, and because I was 17 and a half, and my dad's like, if you join the Navy, become a submariner, you'll be on like 120K. And I'm like, 1997, 1998. 120K at an 18-year-old, man, that's back in those days.
For sure.
It's like tons of money. So I was like, let's do that. And I signed up, got all the way through, and then I got medically shut down because I had plates in my arm. And I can still remember reading the letter and going, you're medically unsuitable due to the fact that the plates in your arm will affect the antennas on a ship. And I was like...
Righto.
I was like, but what's a ship made out of? And showing this letter to my dad, he just made a phone call straight to the doctor and said, "Are you serious? Ship's made out of metal, right? How's 4 little plates going to affect this?" So, so they said, if you get him out, we'll relook at it. And they relooked at it, but by then one of my mates said to me, he goes, "Well, you've already been accepted for the Navy. Let's join the Army." And I was like, yeah, you know what? Screw you, Navy. I want to join the Army. And so he didn't get in. And I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And they offered me everything. They said, you can do anything you want. I said, well, if I'm going to join the Army, I want to go to Special Forces, so I'm going to go and join the infantry. And the psychologist said, you can do anything, right? Like anything. And I was like, yeah, I just told you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go join.
She's like, you don't have to be a grunt.
And I was like, no, this is the pathway I'm going to go. And she's like, oh my God, you're one of them. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I'm 18 years old. So I joined, went into Kapuka. I kind of knew what I was getting into because my dad was telling me, he's also feeding me the Navy stuff, the Army shit. Why are you doing this? He actually told me to go back upstairs into recruiting and tell them I'd changed my mind and get out of the infantry and actually go and do something better. And I said, I'm not doing that. He said, well, I'll drive to Sydney and I'll do it on your behalf.
Doesn't work like that.
No,
you're an 18 adult. You can make your own decisions.
Joined, went to Kapuka in July 2000.
Missed you by 6 months.
Yeah.
I left there in January 2000.
Yeah. So
to go up to Townsville where I met your brother.
Yes.
We'll get to that in a second.
Brother. Yeah, you met my brother. So, went into, Kapuka, I can still remember the first day it hailed. And it was like, we're marching to get all our gear and it's hailing. It's not big hail, but it's little hail. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is nuts. And I'm fit, like I'm a swimmer, I'm a triathlete. And I'm like, man, am I doing the right thing here? But the group of guys and girls that I was with, we were almost like a very rebellious platoon.
Which platoon was it?
12 Platoon Bravo Company.
Bravo Company, yeah.
So we were very rebellious. We joke about it, and like I'll get into this. Like 3 of us met on the trek just recently. One of them
ran into each other again.
Yeah,
right.
And we were talking about this. Like we only got off red tabs for one day. We were told, always being told off. We didn't care. We were like, whatever. We're here. We're just joining the military. We're a very outspoken platoon. And everyone would be looking at us like, who the hell are these guys? They're not even, and they're like, yeah, these guys are marching out in a week. And they're like, what?
Oh, so they kept you on red tabs. That's what I mean. So you're on red tabs the whole way through, which is for those that are uninitiated, that means that your level of privileges going through one RTB are not as high as the blue and yellow tabs. Yeah. So you're on the bottom of the barrel all the way through.
All the way through. We were on blue tabs for a day, and then we were all went on the piss, and that was the next morning was the worst. They were in there yelling at us, and guys were like, whatever, shut up. And like walk into the bathrooms, and they're like, fucking straight off blue, straight on to red.
For the whole platoon?
The whole platoon. Whole platoon. So yeah, we did that, and I still remember my platoon commander. I can't remember his name. But
his name's Sir.
Yeah, Sir, yeah. I think he had like alopecia, so he had no hair. And he had piercing blue eyes, and I just used to call him the Nazi experiment gone wrong, right? Like, that's what he looked like. But he didn't like us because me and a couple others, because we beat him in the run on the BFA. We beat him in the BFA. He was training for SF, so he's got these young whippersnappers showing him up. And he said, if you beat me again, I'm going to punish the whole platoon. And the 3 of us got together and we're like, let's beat him.
There's a good leadership trait for you right there.
So next BFA, smashed him. And then in the pool, I smashed him, right? Like, because I was a swimmer, right? So I smashed him. And yeah, at the end of it, I remember sitting down having a chat with him, and I said, look, what do you mean fitness level just above average? I'm just passing.
Where does that put you, sir?
And that's what I said to him, and he's like, don't question me. And I was like, he goes, I can fail you and you can stay here. And I was like, well, that's a bit unfair. But so yeah, then we went off to Singo, at Singleton for infantry training, and I met up with a bunch of other people. And
did you like that? Because it's like it's a bit Kapuka-ish, but it's a bit more advanced. You got a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, look, it was a lot better. Like going in there, we bonded real quick. Again, most of the guys I was at Kapuka with, most of our platoon was arms corps. So, you're going in with these guys again. So, this is going to be a wild ride. So we've now got a bit of freedom. We're going out, we're getting on the piss, we're doing training. And it was so much, I had a really good section commander. So we had really good section commanders in our platoon at Singo. So I was quite grateful for that. And they were quite lenient. So they were hard, but, it's the early thousands. You still got hit, right? I got hit, I got punched. But when I reflect on it, the way he described it to me was, okay, I understand why you did that. Like, I need you to think under fire and not have me come over and say, hey, do this to your weapon. I need you to think. And if you've got a threat of danger, well, then this is going to happen. So you're automatically going to do it next time. And I did, right? So it was a learning thing, right? I still agree with some of that stuff. You can't model coddle someone all the time, right? So Singo was really, really good, and we had the they said most of us are going to go to 4 area, and I was like, I don't even know what that wasn't even on my list. And they described this as the new potential SF battalion that they're raising, and I was like, oh sweet, there we go. I don't even have to try, right? Like it's we're going to get this opportunity, and so yeah, we marched in there, and that was complete different army again, right? Like you march in, they just like lenient as, My first day, they just said, here's a M16 203, learn it. Here's the manual, learn it. This is your new weapon. I was like, man, I hadn't even seen this thing before in my life.
Except on the movies.
Yeah, on the movies. What is this weapon?
So you're down at Holsworthy, Tobruk lines, old
Tobruk
5-7
lines.
area lines.
Tobruk lines. And we all got put in the same area. And until they were divvying out the rooms, you know, I kept running into this guy every part of my career. He was one of the full tracks. And I'll say his name. His name's Rob Gasson. You probably come across him. No. And I got my room first. He just walked over, took my key and said, I'm taking your room till I get my room, so fuck off. And I was like, what do I do with that?
Paper, rock, scissors, mate.
I'm like, okay,
Yep.
I'm not going to question this. This dude will fuck me up. And I'm like, yeah, you have my room. I'll just go and sleep on this bunk with 20 other dudes. And then I got my room. He ended up being a really good commander. Like I really, really liked working with him. And we deployed straight away. So we were deployed. I ended up getting broken up from my original mates, and they were all in Delta Company, and I moved to Alpha, and you know, thrown into the mix. Well, now I'm not. I enjoyed that because now I'm away from all these guys that I've grown up with, but I've been through Kapuka, Singo with. I'm now just this other head single new soldier where
outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
and you've got to be forced to make friends and fit in.
And they're just looking at me, and some of these guys have already been in for ages. One of them's already barrack qualified. They're just looking at me like, hey, shut the fuck up. Just do your job. And I learned a lot from that. Like I was still really fit. We deployed, got to do some really cool stuff with the commando unit over there, right? Well, 4 area. And so had my highlight, was coming back to do training. And my intentions were to get qualified. But, you know, obviously things happen. I won't go too deep into the story, but, you know, there was a couple of people that were out to get me because of my personality. I'm very carefree, you know, very outspoken, and they were out to get me. So they were on the warpath to find me, and they were trying to do everything in their power to find something. And look, I admit this now. I was in the party scene. I had a bit of fun. I would experience stuff and go out and do things, but I never let it get the better of me. I was almost there qualified, and then I went to Singapore, and I got an emergency appendectomy. Like I was.
What is that? Excuse my ignorance. I've not heard of that before.
So
slapidectomy?
Appendectomy.
Appendectomy.
So I
thought you said slipidectomy.
Yeah,
that's another disease that people get.
So yeah, I woke up. I was feeling sick for a couple of days, and just sick in the guts. And I just thought maybe I've got, you know, like barley belly or something like that. And I then woke up one morning and I was like, I just felt I'm fucking in agony in my stomach. And we were about to do a 15K run, and my medic came over to us, young private, and he said, "Hey, how are you feeling?" And I said, "Oh fuck, I'm fucked." He goes, "You're pretty pale." And I said, "Yeah, I feel sick in the guts, and but now it's moved to my right side, and I just think I've got something wrong." And he pushed on my stomach, and I was like, "What are you doing?" As soon as he released, I like practically collapsed on the ground. And he goes, "Man, I'm going to take you to the doctors. I think you've got something wrong with your appendix." And I went to the doctors, and they rushed me into hospital in Singapore, and I had. Within 2 days, I was in surgery getting my appendix out before it erupted.
Appendix out.
Yeah,
before it ruptured.
Yeah, before it ruptured. So, and I'm in a foreign country. I'm part of a unit that, you know, not supposed to be spoken about, and it was an interesting time being in hospital. And the unit was about to leave, so they're trying to figure out whether they leave me here under the embassy or bring me home. And I'm like, nah, just drug me up. I will get on that plane. I'm get on that Herc and sit on that Herc. I don't give a shit. Don't leave me here, because, you know, God knows what could happen. So, but yeah, so that meant I couldn't jump. So I, at that point in time, at the end of like 2002, 2003, moving into 2003, they were starting to move heaps of people on. can you be qualified by this period of time? Well, no, I couldn't.
It's just the evolution of the unit.
Yeah.
So it was like maybe 97, 98 when they actually stood up that capability.
Yeah.
And then, bring everyone in, and there's that normal filtering process of as they're evolving up, that is, then it's just natural that people are going to fall through. Like
that's exactly right. So so I got posted. I got posted up to 1RR. So that's where my brother was at Fourfield, right? So coming up from, this unit experience to go to Townsville, I drove all the way up and got out of the car. I was like, where the fuck am I? It's so hot up here. Like, it's so hot. Met my brother, met Rosie, Rosie as well. My brother's taller than me and bigger than me, and Rosie's bigger, and they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm just like, fuck, where am I, man? On the sun? And went into 1RR, and, everything I'd been trained in the commando unit, like weapons, DEMS, all that, meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like they said to me, amphib, all that stuff, roping. They said, what courses have you got? And I said, I started rattling them off. They just looked at me like, well, that means shit, man. Do you have like mortars, DFSW? I was like, nah. No.
Different capability.
Different capability. So I got, and within a couple of months I was deployed again. So I went over to Timor with 1RR, came back, and, heaps of guys were getting ready to go back, training for SF, going back to commandos. And I was contemplating it, and I went through the process a little bit to do it, and I met with a psychologist, and they said I told him everything, and they said, what do you know about SF? I said, well, take a look at my course reports, mate. Like I've been there, man. And what I found out was he shut me down, and I got kind of annoyed because his excuse was, you don't know enough about special forces, and I was like, I don't. But what I found out is he shut down a lot of people. It was about like 30 guys plus that he shut down. And then it came back to the units that this dude was shutting people down for no reasons, just on his own ego, that they reevaluated everyone and said, come back in and have another discussion, and we'll relook at all of these proposals. Lots of guys did it. I just met my wife, right? So she's not, at this stage, she's not my wife, but I just met her. And I got told I was going on a promotion course, and I thought, you know what, I'm actually not, don't worry about it. I'm not going to bother. And I'm getting told that we're going to step up for overseas anyway again. So I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to live my life here and, go through the processes and, see where this takes me instead of...
it's not just living your life. You're in
the
big blue one up in Townsville, very, highly capable, focused unit. You've just met an awesome lady who's now the love of your life. There's still plenty of positive things going on in your life, mate.
And that's and what I've learnt now is, everything's an experience, right? So you don't know what's going to come from fortune or misfortune, right? So you can have a good thing come from misfortune, right? So it's depending on how you look at it.
More often than not, I would put forward.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of shitty things happen in my life, and you don't know it at the time, even though I'm now trying to inject it back into my brain going, right, that happened a couple of weeks ago. Guess what? That's a signal that something really good's about to occur.
Yeah.
So now you're just eyes and ears wide open for what that good thing's going to be, and you don't know what it is or when it's going to come.
No, and if you've got the ability to reflect and really look at why is that happening to me right now. Early years, I didn't really, why the fucking army hates me, fuck that person, that
reflection doesn't exist in your 20s and even in your early 30s. Not a fucking chance. How old are you?
43.
Right, so I reckon it's about your 40s where you're like, all right, I've got a bit of a runway of life. I've had some things that have gone well. I've had some things that have gone not so well, and everything in between. Just the reflection element of one's life, in my experience anyway, just starts to kick in.
Yeah.
See, I'm not surprised.
It's mortality starts to kick in, so you realise you're not invincible.
But what I would say is that for those listeners out there, look up reflection, and if you could start to incorporate some reflection into your life, like, would you agree if you incorporated reflection earlier, you would have more context and more, because having fuck you moments to everyone's not helpful.
No.
Like if something happens, you're like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like we've all been there.
Yeah.
I was really bad at it back in the day.
Have the fuck you moment, but then go and, walk away and go, okay, I said fuck you, but what's that person trying to teach me right now?
Yeah.
What am I trying to learn? I'm trying to teach my kids now, and I think we were talking about stuff beforehand, and, my 16 16 or 17 now. He'll fucking listen to this and go, I'm 17, Dad, when you did this.
Why don't you fucking know my age?
And he's, and you know, I say to him, if you can reflect at this age, you'll be so much more advanced than I was. Right?
Way more.
And, you know, same with my daughter. Why are you anxious? Let's look into this.
How old is she?
She's 12.
Oh, you got that one covered.
So she's really good at reflecting, and you'll go and tell her off and she'll tell you what she's done wrong, why she did it, how it made her feel, how it made you feel, and then reflect in front of you and you're like, okay, cool. And just like walk off. Like, you know, like, she's just punished herself, told
That's
you
good.
what, and so she's really good at. My son, he's just been through puberty, right? So he's now coming out the other end of puberty where he's like, okay, I actually realise you guys are trying to teach me something.
You're talking in a dark voice.
Yeah.
It's a deep
because
voice.
he's got a deep voice. His little high-pitched voice.
What's his name? He's giving a shout out.
Ollie.
Ollie.
So, yeah.
Shout out to you, Ollie. I hope you're enjoying listening to Dad's story so far. We won't say anything embarrassing on this podcast, maybe in a follow-up, once the world gets to experience Dan Vincent for the first time round. It might be a second time.
Yeah, no.
Because I know there's many levels to you as there are to me.
Yeah, and so look, I went through deployed to Iraq. You know, that was probably one of the intense operations I did because I got to work in the ERs. Actually got to see life for what life is.
Isn't that a sobering experience? Yeah.
And then the detachment and becoming desensitized to it all, right? You know, it's like a moment where I was going to the mess and, you know, there's body bags getting dragged off a chopper right next to me. And you're like, God, I wonder what's for lunch. And you're like, well, no, I've told that story to someone and they're like, dude, how many body bags? Oh, I was about 20. They're dead people. And I'm like, yeah, life's, you know, my view on life is, you know, death is going to happen. Right, it's inevitable. All right, you don't know when it's going to get you. You've either got 88 years or more or less. Right, or I've talked about it in summers. If you've got 88 summers, I've only got 45 left.
I've got less.
Right.
Yep.
I may.
Time is our best friend and our greatest enemy. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I could walk out of here and get hit by a fucking car. Right, like it's you don't know when it's going to come and grab you. So enjoy every moment that you can. I'll use this thing. I'm digressing a little bit. And the thing is, if I could give you $10 million, would you take it? Right now.
Most would say yes.
Yeah. But then if I threw a caveat at that and said, you can have the $10 million, but tomorrow you die, would you take it? Most people say, fuck no.
No.
Well, go and enjoy your life then. $10 million is nothing to you right now.
Yep.
Fucking go and enjoy it. If that's what life means to you, what are you whinging about?
The parties on the Wolf of Wall Street. I tell you what, if you had 10 million in 24 hours, you'd want to fucking try and replicate something similar.
Something crazy, like you just,
2 fucking jumbos.
Yeah, just fucking go. Like fucking.
Ollie hasn't probably watched that film before, so he doesn't what's the jumbo scene on the Wolf of Wall Street, Dad? Oh, sorry, Dad, with the dark voice.
Yeah, with the dark voice. So, but yeah, so I went off to Iraq, and I made a choice after Iraq. I wanted to stop walking and go fly helicopters.
Oh,
so I wanted to go to the dark side and become an officer.
Well, as they say, the second class flight is better than a first class
Oh,
walk.
mate, yes. Like even a APC, like I don't care. Like I started to learn to appreciate other elements of the Defence Force.
Doing 40k stomps with 40 kilos on your back fucking sucks. It's cool when you're doing it and you're like, yeah, man, I'm fucking tough.
Yeah.
But it's now that I reflect on that.
Yeah. And then you see a lab
part of the
drive
reason why my back and my shoulders and my knees is fucked right now is I did too many of them.
Yeah.
So
and then you see a lab or an APC go past and you go, oh, maybe I made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But
and you're looking at them going, you fucking pogues. They're looking at you going, fucking idiots. What are you walking for? It's just the symbiotic relationship we all have, right?
It's fucking great. But yeah, and then I came home. I got redeployed again because Timor kicked off in 2006. But that deployment is when I damaged my spine pretty bad. And when I talk about it, I can still remember the point of where I had all my officer stuff ready to go. The unit gave me an option. I rang my wife and said, hey, they want me to go. She goes, it's your choice. And I can still remember it as clear as day where I went, okay, I'll go.
She's like, you know the right thing to do.
So I deployed within 4 days, I had wrecked my spine.
Wow.
I didn't know the severity of the damage because I was typical military, typical arms corps guy. I slipped over, and I don't know if you can see. Like, just imagine if you can't see this. Points of the table. I was in a navy blue robe with pink love hearts and matching boxer shorts, and I walked out the shower block. I was talking to my mate, and I slipped on the water, and I slipped right out the door, and I threw my weapon, and it went flying, and I landed on the point of the step, and then.
Where in your back?
So
lumbar, thoracic.
Lots of my lumbar.
Yeah.
And then my mate's pissing himself laughing
as you generally do at first,
and
until he realises he really
and I'm
hurt.
Like, dude, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? I said, I can't feel my legs. I seriously can't move my legs. And he said, no, you're joking. I said, no, I seriously can't feel. I am trying with all my power right now to move my legs, and they're not moving. And he's like, oh shit. And that should have been a warning sign, but I about 30 seconds went by and I got feeling back in. I was like, okay, I can move my feet. Okay, everything's all right. He's gone.
Thank God.
He's gone and got my weapon. We're shipping out.
Fuck the weapon. Get the medic.
So we walked over to the medic and I said, look, hey, this just happened. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I got bruising all over my back. And he's like, how you feeling? I was like, yeah, it's a bit fucking sore, man. What should I do? And he's like, and I'm a fucking combat medic myself, and I'm like, maybe I should go and see but I'm here. We're going in 30 minutes. I just put all my gear on, went up in the mountains, and started humping the mountain. Not humping literally, but pack marching, doing all my patrols. And when I came home to do the rest of I did my board, passed it, and I was sitting there with my wife.
So you got through all that.
Yeah.
You went through a period of can't feel my legs to now it's back to I just fighting through it.
Discomfort. It was discomfort. And it wasn't until I was home and I was sitting with my wife and I said, or fiance at the time, and I said, hey, is the air conditioning on? And she's like, yeah, it is. I was like, okay. I'm getting a bit concerned because my leg's really hot. And then within a day or two, my body listed. So you
just twisted your hands in.
So my hips, if my hips are straight,
yes.
my hip tilted like that.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is painful. And one of my physio friends, she came over and she said, this is protection. You're in protection mode. So I went and had a scan, and I had the scan, and then I came back in, and it was a different doctor that I normally been seeing. And she sat with me and said, I'm just going to call RMC. And I was like, okay. And she literally rang RMC and cancelled RMC in front of me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I said to her, what's happening? And she goes, oh, you can't go to RMC in January. I said, oh, can I go in July? And she goes, no. Has no one explained this to you? And I was like, no one's explained anything to me. And she said,
it would have been good to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you know about your injuries?
Yeah. And I was like, no one's explained shit. And she goes, oh, you're not going to be in the military for much longer. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? My world is just spiraling.
What year is this? Situate us.
2006.
Right, yeah.
So, and I'm like, fuck, what is going on here? My world is spiraling out of control. I'm losing my officer career. I'm now being told I'm not going to be in the military. What's happening? I don't know. Here's leave. Don't come back to work. What does don't come back to work mean in the military sense? I've never experienced this before. Never had sick days. So what does don't come back to work? Here's a big pile of drugs. Report in probably once every couple of weeks. Fucking I just fell off the cliff. Like, popping meds, drinking heaps of alcohol because the unit's deployed all over the place.
All the coping mechanisms that are not good for you.
No. So and my wife had no idea. I was at a talk. I was talking at a uni, and I was explaining to the uni that I was popping like a couple of 100 milligrams of tramadol, and a couple of the max amount of oxycodone, and having beers, and still functioning. Still being able to have a conversation where people would have no idea that I was medicating like this. And then I had a neurosurgeon who was really, really good. Like he asked me a random question. He said, "Can you feel your penis when you piss?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Does it hurt when you poo?" I was like, "No." He goes, "Do you have sensation on your asshole?" on your asshole? And I was like, "It's not something I've really experienced." And he goes, "I need you to, And I said, "Yeah, I can feel everything." And he goes, "Well, good. You've got two choices. You can go through the rehabilitation way. It's going to take you about 2.5 years, or I can cut you open and we can do a disectomy or whatever it is, and we can go that pathway." And I said, "Well, what is each?" He goes, "Each has its own, journey, right?" And he said, 1 in 100 surgeries go wrong. And I said, "How many have you done this year?" And he goes,
It's like 95.
99. He goes, "It doesn't work that way, Dan." And I was like, "Okay." But I chose the rehab model. Longest 2.5 years, but reflection, best choice ever. Like back pain to me, when people go, "Oh, what's your back pain?" Well, how
It's relative.
Relative, right? To me, I do triathlon. I do Ironman. I got told never run again. Not run long distances. Never do high endurance sports again. But I remember and the neurosurgeon said, "Hey, you'll do this. You'll be right." And so medically transferred into clerical. Oh man, that was the hardest thing ever. Like going from that to clerical, and then
At least they kept you in.
yeah, I fought hard. So one of my mates who had similar injuries tried, and they said no. And I wrote it was like a 6 or 7 page document of why I should stay. You've spent all this money on me in 4 area. You've spent all this money on to get me to here. Why just waste me? And if I can be of service still, because that's what I wanted to be of service. That's why I joined. Keep me in. And so they went, "Here's Clark." I was like, oh shit. Can I do intelligence or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So again, life threw me another little and actually enjoyed it. I got first posted to an infantry battalion. That was hard. That was really, really hard because no one knew me. I rocked up with a new badge. I've got glasses now. Everyone just saw me as this Clark. "Shut up, Clark, and do your job." And I'm like, man, I've been a Clark for 4 months. I have no fucking idea what you guys are talking about. Or I'm still learning, guys. I know your job better than you know your job, right? So fucking just give me a break. But I didn't say that. It wasn't until we got to put polys on. And the OC and all that knew, and I got to put polys on. Everyone goes, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Yeah, man." And then it was one of the 2 commando guys rocked up that I knew, and one of the dudes from 1RA turned up. So, and that's when it all got exposed. They're like, "What are you doing as a Clark?" I was like, "I got injured." They're like, "What the fuck?" And then everyone's like, what is this guy's background?" And I was like, "Just ask, man. Don't assume. Just ask."
Yeah, good
There's
point.
so much, and it plays out in your life, right? You don't know what someone else is going through, right? It doesn't hurt to be kind and just ask the question and to get to understand somebody, right? That could be, at the end of the day, that conversation of being kind could really transform someone's life. Literally, probably stop them jumping off a fucking bridge. And I'll talk about that story a little bit later. But yeah, and then I became Clark, got to understand policy. Policy was, give an arms call, dude, understanding of policy. Man, I was like emailing my mates, "Your boss can't do this, can't do that, this is, and and then I did that for a couple of years, went to London. That's where my wife got a promotion with Rio.
What were you in London for?
So I took a break. I went with my wife. I thought, I'll go.
When you say take a break, what does that mean?
I took a break from the army. So I got to 10 years, and my Jen is her name. Jen said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to go to London. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I'm at the 10-year mark. Let's go."
So went through the full discharge process?
Sort of, yeah. So went through the discharge process because it was 2.5 years. They couldn't give me leave without pay for that long. Of
course.
My career advisor said, "Look, it's a bit too long." So I went through the discharge process. I said, "But I'll be back." Did stay-at-home dad in London. I thought, this will be easy, man. I've trained soldiers. I've done this. I've been in combat. Fuck me. That was the hardest thing I've done in my life. Like,
Ollie is a young fella.
oh my God, so defiant. He was like 3 years old to 5, and I was just like, this fucking kill me now, right? Like, there was days where Jen would come home. She's like, how's your day? And I said, I'm going for a walk or I'm going to throw myself off the balcony because this little shit.
Go look after that. Yeah.
That little shit is being a pain in the ass. And he'd just smile and go, hey, Mum, I love you. I'm like, fucking love you. Fuck, I'm out. Like, I'm gone.
Every parent listening to this right now is resonating, like nodding their head going.
Yeah. So
the terrible twos and the tricky threes. And that's just great. I don't even know if the tricky threes is a thing. I just made that up.
Yeah.
Three-nager, is it?
Three-nager, yeah.
Oh, I did not know that, but yeah.
So, and look, it gave me a great appreciation to mums and dads who choose to stay home and look after kids. Man, I take my hat off. You're fucking, more than one, fucking, man, I salute you, right? Like, fuck, it's so hard. And yeah, I came back and then got back in the military. But I took that time to actually really test my spine. And that's when I got into Ironman. I was doing triathlon again, and I said, John, I'm going to do an Ironman. I'd never ridden 180 Ks, let alone run a marathon. Swimming came to me second nature. 3.8 Ks in the pool was like, whatever. But got there, built up, did it. I was addicted. And then
what was that feeling like? Because not many people have a chance to compete in, let alone finish a proper Ironman, a full course one.
It was exhilarating. I was so pumped, but then I was fucking exhausted at the end of it.
No shit.
And I've done a couple of them, right? I've dropped down to halves now because there's too much commitment for fulls. You got to ride for 6 hours, right? You got to find time to ride and have family and everything like that. But came back, got back in the military, did clerical, and then deployed to Afghanistan. And that was my breaking point. I'm fucking done. I was really good role. Worked in NATO away from Australia. I worked for an Aussie general, 1-star. Then he had a 2-star and a 3-star above him, and it was pretty much free reign military. Like, we need this done, get it done. That's not illegal, and go, Dan. And I was like, fuck, creative brain just going wild.
Fucking,
yeah,
watch this.
Fucking, my boss had asked me to do things, right? Like, I'll be like, okay, cool. And he'd be like, how did you do that? I said, well, I just went and used my assets that I've become friends with and asked them to come. He's like, cool. What I didn't know, some of the things that he was asking me to do, he's asked the Australian headquarters in HKI to do, and they've said no.
No.
And I'm now making this happen. And he's going back going, well, how can this corporal go and make this happen? And you've got a whole command element that is saying no. And the generals are like all going together, well, come on, explain to, the other officers and that. So, and I'd done something like the force protection element had got to know me. And because it was winter, all the choppers would get shut down. So I'd walk up, because my boss is one of the highest ranking on the base for Australians. I'd walk in and they'd be like, please don't shut our missions down. And I'd be like, say the commander, I say, hey, I need all 6 cars. And he'd be like, I knew you were going to say that. And I'd take all 6 cars and they'd complete all their missions. But the Americans loved it, right? Because my boss's boss, the 2-star, was nothing on that base. But he got to complete all his missions, and I had a coffee with him, and he said, how can I show my appreciation to the force protection element in Australia? And I just worked with Americans in rewriting a policy on awarding medals for Australia. And because we'd had a massive backlog, I said, you can actually award Australians medals, and this is how you do it. And he goes, can I award all 30 of them? And I said, yeah, you can. I'll do all the paperwork. And I did all the paperwork. I walked up to them and said, I just need these details from you. They're going to make a big pompous ceremony of it. You need to be really like open all, come in. And so 30 force protection element soldiers, young diggers from 7RA got awarded ARCOMs. So it was supposed to be downgraded to an achievement medal, but someone like me
ticked a different box.
Ticked a different box deliberately, and my boss was like, I said, oh shit, must have been a processing error. And it was amazing. So you got like 18. All I was thinking about was my 18-year-old self is getting hosed on operations, what could be memorable for them, and then getting awarded these medals, and like they had 2 stars and 3 stars actually giving them the medals, right? So it's very rare.
All of them would remember that day for the rest of their life.
So we got that done, but I was coming home and I got told, hey, you're going to get promoted on your way home. You're going to pack. And I was like, yeah, sweet. All I was looking for was that 3rd hook, and then I was jumping to cross to the officer world. That's all I was waiting for. I was finished my MBA. I was like, oh, that's all I need, and I'm gone. But I think they knew that, and then I got told I wasn't being promoted. And then I was getting told I was being posted back to 1RAR. And I was getting told I was going to get redeployed on operations again. And I was like, I don't get home to mid-August. You want me in Townsville in December to be getting ready for deployment again in January, February. I said, what's my family doing? And they're like, oh, don't worry about your family. Get that sorted. I'm like, yeah, but I've been away for 8 months. And then I just went, nah, fuck this, Army. I'm done. And I left quite angrily, and I got out and I cut the cord. I got a job, cut the cord, and just said, fuck yous, I'm out. But I had a really good doctor who roped me back in. She pulled my psych record, told me I need to go see a psychiatrist. And she wasn't going to let me go naturally because of my physical injuries, so my cervical and my lumbar anyway. But then she'd read my psych record and said, hey, you need to go and we're gonna get you assessed big time. And she said you shouldn't have, and I did. Best thing I knew cracks were there, but I was just ignoring them. Right? I'm like, yeah, whatever, just keep going. Very stoic our era is very stoic, right? Compared to it's compared to now, it can be a little bit. We view mental health a little bit differently. So yeah, ended up getting medically separated. I got PTSD, MDD. They're just fucking labels, right? At the end of the day, like I knew they're there, but fucking they're just labels. They didn't at the beginning. They affected me because I had to relive all of that trauma, hardcore trauma. Like I hadn't really delved into it, and my psychiatrist said to me, he goes, "Fuck, Dan, how have you survived this long?" And I'm like, "What does that mean? Like, fuck, what do you mean survived? Isn't that what life is?" So, so I got out, got medically separated. I did recruiting for a couple of years.
How was that?
It was
civilian recruiting.
Yeah. So the first company I worked for was it was terrible.
That's nobody good.
It was.
I was like, oh, this has got to have a bit of a perk up on the story.
No,
how was that? No, that was fucked as well.
Yeah,
right.
no.
Next.
It was even my wife, the amount of hours I was working, and even my wife, who was an ex-recruiter in her early years, she said, "This is not recruiting, honey. You need to look at something else." And I got headhunted into another firm, and learning how to resign properly. Like I was like, I'm going to leave this company because it's shit, because this one's offering me another job. I don't know what the fuck's happening here. Why is it, And I said, how do I resign? To my wife, like, I'm 37 years old. She goes, what do you mean? How do you resign? I said, remember Army? I resigned. It took me 19 months to get out of this fucking joint. And she goes, oh, you just walk in, tell them you're not going to come in anymore, and you're leaving.
Send them an official resignation email, and that's it.
And I was like, okay. So I went in, I did it, and then my manager at the time, she goes, you need to leave now. And I was like, does that mean like after this conversation? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, remember, never done this before. I said, can I get my lunch from the fridge and all my stuff off my desk? And she goes, of course you can. I was like, cool. That's all I want to know.
Am I being frog marched, or are you asking me to just grab your stuff and head out?
Yeah, so I did. I did that, and then I went into IT recruiting. That was a lot of fun, right?
What year are we talking about now?
2019. So we jumped.
Yeah,
so
great.
2018. So 2018. I jumped into recruiting and did IT, and then I actually literally caught up with one of my old owners this morning. So I haven't spoke to him in ages, and just caught up for coffee, reuniting, having a conversation about life, where we've been, and that was exciting because it was an industry I never knew, and I used to go to meetings And I was very frank with this organisation, saying, "Hey, I'm going through this process. Are you okay with that?" And they'll, "Yeah, go see a doctor. Go see this. Take your time if you need it." I remember going to meetings and I'd say to them, "Hey, pretend I am naive and don't know what you're talking about." And they're like, "Oh yeah." I said, "When I say pretend, I am naive and I have no idea what you're talking about." And they'd all start laughing. And all I did was use my military experience, and I profiled every single person and every single agency that I worked for. So I would have a picture of who they were, who their family was, what their kids got up to, what school they went to, what sport they played in. I never talked about recruiting. I just wanted to know the intimate details and the personal side of somebody, because that's what I was trying to do.
Love it. Yes. Isn't it so cool we can bring the knowledge and skills and attributes from a long and sounds like very distinguished military career into a completely different industry, but still apply the same principles.
Yeah, and
cool.
look, it was...
They would have loved you.
Yeah, and it was great. Like, I made jokes in the office. They're like, "Why aren't you stressed?" I said, "Stress is relative. It is so relative right now. Like, you are paying me to go and have coffee with people. That is it. Like, I used to go have coffee with people, and those people would try and fucking shoot me in the back or blow me up on the way. I'm walking to this coffee meeting in the city and nothing's going to happen to me.
Yep.
So I'm not stressed.
No.
In the slightest little bit. So it's just a new experience, a new meeting, and if it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
How did you get into doing what you're doing now? Let's sort of finish off with that for the last little bit.
How did I get into what Trojan's Trek?
Yeah.
So Trojan's Trek, I took a break from the veteran space after Soldier On.
Because that's how you and I reconnected again, hey? The whole Soldier On bits and pieces. So we were helping out with some sponsorship.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, hey, I know you, and you know my brother." And
you know my brother, and we know, and we were all connected. And I took a break with what happened with Soldier On, and I just, the universe is an amazing thing. I got roped in. I said, "Hey, universe, I'm ready." And
ready
to get back into this space, help my brothers and sisters again. My daughter keeps asking me why I do it, because I get angry at them. Anyway.
No, they're probably asking like, why are you so committed to your role and don't spend time with me? Is that what you're about to say?
Oh, no, it's more within our veteran space.
Right.
I get angry at the victim mentality so it's not everybody, but that we take, right? It frustrates me because there's so much more life to give, right? You don't have to be sucked into that PTSD. It's okay to mourn the loss of that identity, right? Defense is not everything, right? There is so much more complexity to life than, you've got a family. You may not have a family, whatever it is, but there's so much more that you can do and more that you can give if you just let go, face the trauma, go deep into the fire and actually face it head on. Once you face it head on, you've got nowhere else to go, right?
It's almost like when you are, so yes, totally agree. When you are procrastinating about a task, and you finally get around to doing it, and you get it done, and it's actually a lot simpler than what you thought it was going to be, you're like, why the fuck did I procrastinate on that for so long? I should have just got it done. It only took me half the time and half the level of application that I thought. So thinking about the trauma and thinking about what might be the case and having a bit of a vision about what the future might be without going in and facing it, like you said, the mind and the ego is there to protect and try and let us know that things are going to be worse than what they are, because it is a protection measure. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. But when you actually face reality, you find out, oh, that wasn't actually that bad.
It's exactly right. So I got into it because I put it back out there and I said, look, hey, I'm happy to do this. I was camping and the old chair of Trojan's Trek just happened to be, it's a longer story, but I got talking to him and, we found out we had so many different connections and, how we not cross paths. And he invited me to a tender trek. And I went on this, I was like, I was trying to develop it in Soldier On. How do we do these different approach to mental health, where it's reflective. It's not doing, volleyball, all these fun events, which are Band-Aid events. How do we focus on getting people into the depth of who they are from a values perspective? Why did they join the Defence Force or the police force? Why do they do what they do? And disconnect that purpose and identity, because purpose is intrinsic, right? Like everybody goes, oh yeah, but my purpose is the Defence Force. No, that's simply just your identity right there and then. You can have multiple identities, but intrinsically, why do you do what you do? Why do you get out of bed? All right, why do you get out of bed? So if you can bring it back to that. So he invited to me, and I was like, hey, these guys actually, they've been around since 2009. These guys are doing something really interesting. I started talking to him about some of the stuff that I've written about, one of the papers that's about to come out that I've, talk about life, career and education design. And I said, can we start manipulating the Trek into this? He invited me to the board, and then a couple of the board members stepped down. Now, coming into Trojan Trek was like a baptism of fire. It was, souped up, hyper, veterans being veterans, attacking one another. Like I became the chair, and, people said things about me that, I'm just like, far out. I was getting phone calls from people that I didn't even know existed. Have I said this? Did I do this? And I'm like, whoa, shit, I'm only here to help, for fuck's sake. Like it's everyone on Trojan's Trek volunteers. Everyone volunteers. No one gets paid.
I think that's a poor model to have, because there's no skin in the game.
No.
People can act the way they want because there's no exchange. There's no commercial exchange.
No, so
I'm all for people volunteering to do shit, but not when it starts to get toxic.
No.
Because they're like, people are off the leash when they're volunteers.
So we lost a lot of
fuck you, mate. I'm here as a volunteer. It's just different.
Yeah, look,
if you're looking to volunteer at Axon, don't come knocking. It doesn't work that way.
So we lost.
Is there a payroll here?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
So we lost a good chunk of people, right, to that toxicity.
Good.
And
toxic people and bad for you.
But it was fucking great.
Good.
Because out of the other end, we've got a great bunch of people who are in it for the right reasons. And I always say to every person that comes on and wants to be a facilitator or a mentor or something like that, why are you doing this? Because if this is about you, you can fuck off. Because it's not about you. Mm-hmm. It's not about me.
Giving, serving, giving back, and helping others.
I had one of my SF mates on recently on one of the treks. I've been trying to get him on something like this for years.
So tell us about Trojan Trek. What do you actually do?
So
you just go out there and fucking walk around the bush and talk to people?
No walking. No walking whatsoever. So it's a 6-day wilderness-based approach to mental health. So what we do, we have vehicles. We have a home base where we will sleep in swags and all that kind of stuff. We rough it. We also have access to, in some of the areas where we go, we have access to bedding if you need a bunkhouse. For some people who can't sleep in the swag. One of them where I said, fuck, I'm sleeping in the bunkhouse. But so we go and we do that. What we do is we look at life, career and education. So we look at life first. We're going to unpack career and education at a later date. But we don't, there's a story where I was just touching on it, where a student comes to the master and the master he goes, how do I escape the heat being suffering and pain and all that? And the master says to him, go deeper into the furnace. And then the student says, but I will get burnt. And he goes, in the middle of the furnace, you will feel no more pain. That what we do is we tackle it head on. We've got clinical oversight. We go into value set. We just had a poly out doing it. And he's a veteran, and he was like, fuck me, I've never experienced anything like this. And we don't beat around the bush. It's not about, Band-Aid fixes. We'll have deep conversations. Each group's different. But what we're noticing now, people are ready, and we are delving deep within the first day. We are having conversations around situations, and people are really opening up, and it focuses around that purpose identity stuff. Right?
Once there's a safe space, mate, you watch people open up, because we're all yearning for it.
And it's like-minded, right? And we have we do veterans and we do emergency services.
Great.
Which is really, really good, because when you get young veterans on there who have a gold card, they've got a pension, they've got everything fucking sorted in life, you know, and they listen to a copper talk or an ambo talk, and they got fucking nothing, right?
Compared to that. Yeah.
And then you go, oh, shit, perspective is everything. And you go, mate, you are fucking all right.
On a good wicket.
You've got $75,000 for the rest of your life till you die.
Before your feet hit the floor in the morning.
Yep.
There's no victim mentality that should be adopted there.
No.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yep. No, you've got everything, right? You've just got paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yep.
You've got a gold card. You've got free medical, free fucking everything for the rest of your life. Shut the fuck up. Realize, go back to that $10 million question.
Yeah.
What if you don't want those $10 million for one day and then you're going to die? What are you doing? So we delve into that.
Good on you, man.
And
a bit of tough love is bloody good.
And it's not to the point where you're like they're all like breaking and falling apart.
No.
To the point where I hope he's okay with me using this. My SF mate cried. I haven't seen him cry in ages, and you know people looked at him and went, "What the fuck?" And you know he got on a plane. I sat up around the fire with him at night time, and he was telling me stuff that I'd never heard him talk about with. And he goes, "I've never told anyone this." I said, "Dude, I'm glad you're telling me." And he said, "I'm going to go and tell my wife." And he got on the plane when he went home, rang her, texted her and said, "Get a bottle of wine ready." And he just opened up. And she's like, "I didn't know any of this." And he's like, so he's just started talking about it. Right? I said, talking about it is that's how you build trust, right? When you can go and ask for help, not the other way around. So, and he was like, "Oh, right." And we just had someone recently message us and say, "Sorry, I've been radio silenced, put myself in hospital." And I was like, fucking hell, what are we going to hear here? But he put himself in hospital for wellness, took himself off drugs, took himself off all his meds because of the trek. And I'm like, what are we doing?
It's awesome.
What are we doing? Like it is, and I keep coming back to what we're doing is we're giving that safe space. It's having the deep conversations. It's not obviously clinical in the sense that it's clinical. It's all peers. You know, we've got training, we've got everything. We've got, you know, psychologists over the top, but the psychologist doesn't come. So it's
sometimes therapeutic is far more impactful than clinical.
Yeah, I look, I work in that space, right? And everybody says, you know, as soon as you throw a clinician in the room, everyone shuts up, right? Because, you know, you're being judged. So it's that peer work. And most of the peers, you know, have been corporate. They've been ex-coppers. They've been, you know, they've worked, you know, they've transitioned out. You know, look, I look at myself, I'm an executive. I go on the trek. And so it's, you know, everyone comes with that different wealth of knowledge. And it's allowing people to actually start to see that everyone has their own journey, right? Everyone's got trauma happening in the behind the scenes. It doesn't matter. Everyone's got something going on. If you just be kind, listen. Doesn't hurt to say hello. How are you? I hope you have a nice day.
For sure.
I do that. I do that every morning when I'm running. I might be fucked. I'll be running. I'm at the 15K mark. And I'm rooted, and I see someone, they look at me, I'm like, I hope you have a good day. It takes more energy for me to say, I hope you have a good day, because I'm completely fatigued.
Yeah.
But
it's a good feeling, isn't it, when you do that?
Yeah, you don't know what that person's going through, right?
Yeah.
You don't know. And I was talking with a colleague at work just the other day, and he was telling me a story which made me like reflect even more. He was saying that he was listening to a podcast about this guy in America who committed suicide but survived. Obviously, wasn't successful. All he wanted was, when he was walking to jump off the bridge, was someone to say hello. That's all he wanted. From that time he walked in New York, hundreds of people have passed him. Not one person looked up and acknowledged him, said hello. And you're like,
it's the world we live in, mate. My two sisters come and visit me on the Gold Coast or in Sydney. They're from the country. They're walking around saying hello to everyone. I'm like, shut the fuck. What are you doing?
Yeah.
No one wants to fucking say hello to you here.
Yeah. So if you don't know what that hello can do to someone, right?
Yeah.
I hope you have a nice day is enough could have been enough to stop that dude. He survived, obviously. He said that my mate, the colleague was telling me that a seal saved him.
Good.
A seal like pushed him off to shore, got him conscious again. Like an animal
on
saved
your
this dude's life, right?
Yeah.
Like, and no human could show any acknowledgement. So,
Yeah.
on the trek,
What a good story.
that's what we do. We bring it to the face of that. Your service is a part of you. It's simply a part of you, right? It's why did you serve? Intrinsically, why did you serve? And that your identity as a police officer, a military person, an AMBO is simply just a part of you. It's not. It doesn't define you. And we look at experiences as as just an experience. If you believe something's good, something also has to be bad.
Balance in life.
So if you think that was a good experience or a shit experience, well then what's the opposite? What would a good one look like? Or and then you go, well, why can't it just be an experience?
Yeah. Love it.
So,
Mate, we've got to leave it here again.
That's right.
But Trojan's Trek, Daniel, can you just make sure you put all the details put underneath the podcast there? Ladies and gents, I told you that was going to be a cracking podcast. You've got so many layers and so many depths to your personality. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I would love you have you come back on again one day and talk more about some other ways of going deeper into one's soul and brain, because you've got a bunch of experience there, mate. Thanks so much for joining us on Axons Unleashed.
Thanks very
Dan
much.
Vincent, you're a legend. Righto,
Thanks,
ladies
mate.
and gents, hope you enjoyed that podcast. See you again soon.